Number 5, I'm calling this the King of New York. If there was any doubt ever who owned New York, what team owned New York, it's Derek Jeter. It's the New York Yankees. It's not the New York frickin' Mets.
The moment, I think when you're looking at turning points and you're looking at, where the momentum was and how the series was going, when Jeter steps up and leads off the game in Game 4 and hits that home run, it was a very telling moment. And the one thing I love about this, my absolute favorite part about this entire thing, is when you look at that stone cold face after he hits the home run, rounding the bases, just knowing that, like, there's no smile, there's no like cheering, there's nothing like, talking to the fan, there's nothing, he's just business all the way around.
Nothing personal, it's just business.
He's like, I'm here and this had to happen. I had to do this, I'm doing this, and now we're gonna kick your ass. That guy I would do anything for. Like, that's the guy when you're on a team and you have a guy that's leading off, because he wasn't the leadoff hitter, they bumped him up.
You heard Gary Thorne on the call saying both teams have struggled to get their leadoff guy on, moving Derek Jeter up to the leadoff spot. Let's see how it goes. First pitch, boom, home run.
Boom.
You mentioned momentum. The Yankees won the series in 5 games. You're like, well, they killed them. Like, what kind of momentum could the Mets have had? But they actually did, because in Game 2, if you remember, the Yankees were up big, and then Mariano Rivera gave up a bunch of runs in the 9th inning. They were putting him in there literally for work, and he gave up a bunch of runs, and the Yankees won by a run in Game 2. And then it goes to Shea, and the Mets win the game, a game El Duque started. El Duque had never lost in the playoffs to that point. So it's now a 2-1 series, and the Mets do have momentum. If they can win Game 4, who knows what the hell happens in that series? And Derek Jeter just basically said, there's no freaking way you're winning this game or this series. I'm going to take it by the balls right now. Let's move on to number 4, the dive. July 1st, 2004 versus Boston. The game went to extra innings, tied at 3. And in the top of the 12th, the Red Sox threatened to take the lead when Trot Nixon sent a bloop over third that looked to be a 2-run single. Out of nowhere, Jeter sprinted and caught a pop-up, heading full speed for the camera well down the third baseline. Because he was sprinting, his momentum sent him diving over the camera well into the first row of the seats. Jeter would later say that he made his decision to dive into the first row of the seats because 1, he expected the fans to catch him, and 2, he recalled injuring himself when he tumbled over the wall into the cement ground of the camera well in Game 5 of the 2001 ALDS versus Oakland. Jeter walked off the field with a bloody face, but he preserved the lead and allowed the Yankees to win on a John Flaherty double in the 13th inning.
I saw in the notes that you put in here some of the pessimists talking about, did he actually need to dive into the stands on this play?
Yeah, that's a common thing people say.
He absolutely did. If you remember, that wall, it was the camera well. It's a much lower wall in that spot than it is in other areas.
It's like knee high.
Shin. I was going to say it's right around the shin. It's a tripping hazard is what it is. So if you're going in there, you can't stop. There's nothing to grab. There's no wall to hold on to.
So he catches it in fair territory and takes 2.5 running steps, and he's in the stands. There's no room there.
This one is one of those just iconic Jeter moments, right? And I think that's important context for why this was in there, because why would a game in July have any bearing on his top 5 play? Because this is what he does. He has no regard for other things but winning.
Another reason I love this play so much is because it forever ended the Nomar versus Jeter debate. In this game, Nomar didn't play. He was sitting on the bench by his own will because of a sore Achilles. That's what they were saying. This is all written after the fact, but teammates recall Nomar begging to get in the game after he saw what Jeter did. Francona denied him to get into the game, and then 30 days later, Nomar was traded.
The Nomar Jeter thing, it's hilarious. It's a good one. I'm glad the Red Sox had a little chuckle on that, because it's not close. When you see the 2 careers, Jeter destroys him.
Number 3, DJ 3K. This is a milestone moment for Derek Jeter. His 3,000th hit, history with an exclamation point. I'm okay with that Michael K call. It's better than where fantasy becomes reality. Jeter, home run off David Price for his 3,000th hit. He goes 5 for 5 in that game. Ends up driving in the winning run in the 8th inning. We all knew he was going to get 3,000. like you said, barring a career-ending injury, he was gonna reach 3,000.
Yeah.
But to do it with a home run, as the first Yankee, going 5 for 5, after to that point in the season, on July 9th, Derek Jeter's stat line was 257, 321, 329.
Yeah, he was struggling bad.
That is dog shit. He was horrendous up until that moment. And after the game, he said, I've been lying for a long time, telling you guys there was no pressure. The one time Derek Jeter feels pressure in his entire career is nothing to do with game importance and only to do with like a personal milestone.
Yeah, it's a game in the middle of the year, but it's an accolade that is huge, and he does it in grand fashion. That's the thing with him. He's got the moment. He's got the the eye for the big moment. He likes the dramatics. You can't even call it. We've had this debate on clutch for a couple of weeks now. Like, this isn't even clutch because it took forever to get there, but it's dramatic in the way that it went down, because everybody's trying to be at the stadium when this happens, right? Everybody's trying to get that one ticket to be at the stadium when this happens, and it doesn't happen, and people got lucky on that day. So the fact that he went 5 for 5 as like to boot with a home run to get that 3,000, very Derek Jeter, baby. I mean, it's just a very big moment that epitomizes who he is and how he does things.
Number 2, Mr. November. I struggled back and forth on where to put this one. Mr. November is one of his iconic moments. It's one of his nicknames. That, Captain Clutch, El Capitan, like, those are his nicknames. Mr. November is definitely one of them. I mean, the whole damn thing plays out like a movie. The World Series is being played a week later because of the 9/11 attacks. It's Derek Jeter, after the stroke of midnight, and on a 3-2 pitch, he hits a home run off Byung-Hyun Kim to right field in the 10th inning. And then there's a guy in the stands with a Mr. November sign, and the camera finds him immediately.
When you have a moment like that in such a big series, with the unbelievable emotional toll of that series as well, and not only for the people in the city, but for the entire world, the entire country, everybody's looking. This is probably the first time, probably the last time that everybody was rooting for the New York Yankees. It was the first time the World Series had ever been pushed back like that. You get into November, and up comes Derek Jeter for the moment that he was born for, apparently, and delivers.
Games 4 and 5 of that World Series, games 3, 4, and 5 of that World Series, the ones in New York, but specifically games 4 and 5, are two of the most memorable games I've ever for the Yankees in their franchise. And it sucks that they didn't end up winning that series, but I still watch highlights of those games and think back to those memories. You look at the stats, Arizona dominated them in every way possible. And then in just certain moments, the Yankees would get a clutch moment, a clutch home run. We talk about these moments. Tino, 2-run home run to tie the game. Jeter, Mr. November walk-off. The next night, Scott Brosius 2-run home run. Then a Alfonso Soriano single. The Yankees basically had no hits other than those hits.
And the thing is, when Derek Jeter steps up in that moment, I think everybody there is looking at this like, Jeter's going to do this. How many people do you think predicted that home run in the stands? I bet a lot of people predicted that home
run.
A lot
of drunk people after the fact probably said they predicted.
No, I bet a lot of people looked to the guy next to him or the girl next to him and said, Jeter's going to end this, because that's the way it's supposed to happen.
Let's get to number 1, the flip. A defensive play as the number 1 moment of Derek Jeter's career. I think that speaks to him perfectly. Here's the scene. So it's the 2001 ALDS. The Yankees are down 0-2. They lost the first 2 games against Oakland of the division series at home. They got their butts kicked, and then they go to Oakland. It's like, all right, there's no way they're going to pull this out. They've got to win 3 in a row and the next 2 in Oakland. Messina's dealing. It's a 1-0 lead in the 7th inning. Terrence Long doubles down to the right field corner. Shane Spencer makes a horrendous throw, overthrows 2 cutoff men. Derek Jeter darts across the infield, backhands the ball, flips it to Posada, who gets Jeremy Giambi, who should have slid, on the calf just as before he touches the plate.
The fact is, he didn't slide. Jeter's there. Perfect placement. Ball's overthrown. And they've practiced this. We were talking about this before. I think that's even better, Because the fact that Jeter has said this, Jeter has talked about that they practiced it a number of times, talks about the preparation of every situation. And you know what? I don't know what everybody else was doing on that play, but they're
picking dingleberries out of their ass, just looking at the ball. And Derek Jeter's like, okay, I guess I'll save the day.
But there's a lot of plays that are contingency plays, right? If something happens, this happens. If somebody's out of place or if a ball gets loose, these are the places that we have to go. If the ball's hit to the right side, the left side, there's a number of things that they all go through. So this was obviously one of those wheel things that they're talking about, where Jeter is coming. Everybody else has a bag, everybody else has a position, and Jeter's job now is to, cut in between the base paths at some point and try to cut it off if he possibly can. It's a freak play. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. And even if you practice it, the play has to happen perfectly for it to even work. When you're talking about perception on a baseball and like the intellectual value of a player, it's an 11. It's unbelievable, off the charts.
One of the beautiful things about the play, if you watch the video, is that the entire Oakland crowd just loses their breath at the same moment. It goes from roaring cheers to dead silent in the matter of a blink of an eye. It's so funny to hear. Another argument for why Mr. November is number 2 and the flip is number 1 is because Mr. November doesn't happen without the flip.
The fact that they were down 0-2, and it was a 1-run game at that point, and this is cutting down a run at the plate. That's a huge momentum thing too. Plus, it's a run off the board, and you're dealing with a tight game right there. It very well could not happen.